everybody. How are you doing today? I'm doing great, and I have my friend Jen here, Felicity Stitches. How are
Hi
you
guys,
doing today?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. You go by Jen, right?
I do. I go by Jen.
Okay. So
One N.
Jen is Felicity Stitches, and which threw me off horribly whenever I first started following her, because you would think her name's Felicity,
Right.
but it's actually Jen.
Right.
And we'll get there in a second about how you came up with your YouTube name whenever we talk about your channel. But let's go through the details here. You can find Jen on Instagram and YouTube, both as Felicity Stitches. So, how did you get into stitching, Jen?
Let's see. How did I get into stitching? I actually came by it very naturally. I was a child of the 70s, and my mother was a Renaissance woman. She was a crafter, and she sewed a lot of my clothes when I was little. So I grew up, watching the Brady Bunch and that sort of thing. And my mom would be at the sewing machine, behind the couch, and we would sit and chat. And so she was always stitching. She didn't do a whole lot of hand stitching, but I remember going to the Ben Franklin, and she was buying fabric for a project, and I saw these little tiny kits, and they were, a teddy bear holding a Christmas present, that sort of thing. And so I got started stitching in that way, and I was probably around 7 or 8 years old, and it was never anything that was forced on me or anything like that, but I used to make my own Barbie doll clothes and that sort of thing, and I would come back to cross stitch back and forth whenever I saw something that sort of piqued my interest, but there really wasn't a lot of places to get it. This is long before the internet. And then I went to college the first time, and I got a degree in theater with a concentration in acting and directing, but I found myself spending all my time in the costume shop, and I would, stitch on stuff while I was there. So I actually ended up going to graduate school the first time for costume design and makeup artistry. I went to Kent State, and I got a Master of Fine Arts in costume design and makeup artistry. And I worked as a costume designer for a while, taught as an adjunct professor at a local college here in Ohio. And I really enjoyed it, but it's really hard to find a full-time, college position unless you were willing to move. And I really wasn't willing to move. I didn't want to leave my family. And so fast forward through a bunch of stuff that didn't involve any stitching, and I became a nurse and was going back to graduate school now for the second time to become a nurse anesthetist, and I was stressed out, and I thought, I need something to do with my hands and my mind that keep me from freaking out all the time, because even when I wasn't studying and stuff, I was like freaking out about the fact that I wasn't studying, even though I knew I needed downtime. So I had an old candle wicking kit from Joann's or something, and I worked on that a little bit. And then I had sort of move yourself into crewel, but it wasn't crewel work, but it was with wool. And then I needed to figure out how to do a French knot. And I Googled, and videos came up on YouTube. You know how you Google stuff and it's like, here's the top websites, but then here's a couple of videos to do with whatever it is you're looking at doing. And I was like, oh, there's a video about this? Well, that's great, because I can learn, firsthand. And I clicked on it, and literally my brain exploded when all of this stuff showed up. And I watched a couple of videos on French knots versus colonial knots. And then I found Mrs. Milky Bar Kid, and I think I watched almost every video she made in a matter of like 3 days. I did not get a whole lot of studying done that weekend, but I was amazed at all the stuff that was out there. And then YouTube would be suggesting, oh, well, if you liked this video, here's another one. And so I saw Mackenzie, the Lovely Array, and I watched her videos. And Carolyn Mazzio was making videos back then, and I watched her videos, very informative. And I found Emily C, Eclectic Possessions. So it just sort of snowballed. And then when I found Emily C and Mackenzie, they were showing things that I would really want to stitch. You know, Mackenzie was showing chatelaines and little over one projects, and Emily C was showing these sort of primitive stitches. And I was like, oh, that's really beautiful. And that's really beautiful. And then I got on 1, 2, 3 stitch, and it just sort of took off from there. And I haven't looked back since. I'm just super happy. It's super glad I found my way back to it because I love it. I'm the most calm when I'm stitching. There you go.
It's with all these interviews that I do, it's so interesting how most of the people that I interview, they learn as a kid and then they kind of lose it, but then they always come back in college.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to see how, I don't know, something happens in college. I don't know if it's maybe the stress of college or the intensity of college or something that brings people back to the craft of needle art.
Yeah.
And then at that point is whenever they seem to get hooked. And now obviously for you, it was more the second time around.
Right.
And so, and you answered like 3 of my questions in that first question. So that's awesome. So it wasn't until you found YouTube that you really got sucked into the craft that it is today.
Yes,
so,
because I got to see stitching that was more my taste.
Yeah.
Whereas before, all I really knew of stitching was what was available at Joann's or Pat Catan's, which is a craft store around here, Michael's, and those projects, while I can appreciate them as being, projects that other people would want to stitch, they're not my personal taste. So they didn't really flip a switch for me. When I saw other people stitching things like Emily C and Mackenzie, those videos flipped a switch in me, and I was like, I have to do these. I have to try these projects. And the threads are so beautiful. And then I found a local shop, and they're wonderful. The Crafty U in Broadview Heights, Ohio. Little shout out to my shop. And it was great because I got to feel the fabric and I got to feel the threads and see them, and then it was over. I mean, if you can get there within 30 minutes, I was done for.
It was the same way for me because I was, I would come back. I learned as a kid myself, and I would come back every so often throughout, my 20s and early 30s. Well, mainly my 20s. And then, but it was only ever like the kits that Joann Fabrics or those other stores around me had. And while they were nice and all, they didn't really, I would stitch on them for a while, but then I would never finish them because they just didn't keep my attention long enough to come to a, to finish.
Right.
And then whenever I was whenever I finally found YouTube and all these people that were showing off their projects, and then I learned about, there's, you can find stuff on Etsy and you can find stuff on, other websites that I never even thought to go look at for cross stitch. And then it opened up my, the world to, there's actually stuff out there that I'm interested in.
Yep.
That's my taste versus what some of these kit companies provide.
Right.
So, and then I was able to find other kit companies that actually do provide kits that are more my style versus what just Joanne Fabrics or these other companies. So it's kind of along the same lines as you, as far as, you know, the enlightenment period in our world. So that's pretty cool. So then obviously you stitch. Is there any other crafts that you like to do?
I do. I don't know if you remember in one of my videos I talked about making tamari.
I do.
Tamari balls? Yes.
Yeah.
I love doing tamari, and it's super easy. There was a little bit of a learning curve, but it's a really good grab and go kind of project. You don't need a lot of stuff. You don't need a frame. You don't need a floor stand, or you don't even need magnification. You know what I mean? So it's great. But I'm so hyper focused on my stitching right now. I really haven't done any tamari. I have one that I started for my aunt as a Christmas gift, and it's still like halfway finished because I started it too late in the Christmas season. And really what I should do is work on it so that it would be done and I could give it to her this year. But I really enjoy it. It's a really beautiful craft. Tamari started out as, I'm not 100% positive, so I'm not the ultimate authority on tamari, but they started out sort of as toys for like princesses and the maids in waiting. It's a Japanese art form, a Japanese craft, would handcraft these balls for the princesses to play with and try to make them as beautiful as possible for the princesses. And then, you know, once cotton threads and that sort of thing were made available to the common people, then they were making them. And then, of course, rubber balls came into fashion. And so things change in terms of what's fun to play with for kids, right?
Sure.
But tamari still remained something that was good to give as like a gift, or, you know, to celebrate a baby or a marriage, or, you know, anything like that. So I really like to do those. And I have, you know, in my head, I'm going to have a dough bowl full of tamari at some point, but I haven't actually stitched one for myself. But I do, they're beautiful and they're a lot of fun to do. And when you're done, it's one of those things where you're like, oh, wow, I made that. What appeals to me the most about them is that they are symmetrical. And I have a thing about symmetry that, like, it calms me down and helps me get into my zen or whatever. So I really love, there's something really beautiful about that I like. And they're kind of sparkly. And I have a thing about, I'm like a bird, I have a thing about shiny things. So.
Yeah, I actually have a whole bunch of stuff in my closet for tamari, and I have yet to attempt. But again, it's that whole nervousness about the learning curve. It's like, I know it's super simple once you get started, but it's that, and then again, the total focus on my stitching right now.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to attempting that. And then I know you were also learning how to knit with me. So how's that going?
You know, I got a couple of washcloths out of it right now. I want to learn how to knit so bad. And I think my problem is normally things come pretty easy to me. Knitting is not coming easy to me. And it's proving I need to do it more. I need to practice, right? Practice makes perfect. And I just don't want to take the time away from my stitching right now to practice my knitting. So I think we kind of go through seasons of, you know, I want to stitch all the time. I want to knit all the time. I want to quilt. Like, there's a huge quilting thing that's going on right now. And the ADD in me really wants, like, I'm like, squirrel, you know, oh, we're going to quilt today. Oh, we're going to do, you know, Lori Mischievous Stitches posted a placemat bag that she made, a placemat project bag that she made. And I was like, Googling that and looking at YouTube. Oh, I got to make one of those. Oh, I need to go hunt down some placemats now. It's really easy to get sucked into little things. But the knitting, it's the way that it's been presented on YouTube with Off the Grid Needle Arts, with her channel, and working with you, it's really been brought down into really manageable pieces so that you can learn. It's just me having the ability to focus on it, to do it, that I'm struggling with. And I'm hoping too, once it gets a little bit cooler, I'll sort of feel like I want to be cozy.
I kind of feel the same exact way. I'm like, you know, I was really gung-ho when we first started in February, and I made like, what, 20 washcloths?
Right.
And a half a scarf. And now I'm like, I just haven't touched it at all. And again, I'm one of those people that things usually come super easy to, and knitting is not coming super easy to me. And I'm getting horribly frustrated. And it's like, if it doesn't come super easy, it's like, why bother?
Right. When I can do this, it's really, that is easy. So yeah, it's hard.
So, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I did talk to somebody who is a knitter, and I said, they were like, what do you really want to knit? And I'm like, I want to knit socks.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you watch Nicole of Nicole's Needlework.
Mm-hmm.
Her channel is, I love her to death, and she is so talented, but she also knits, and she knits socks, and I want to knit socks, which is like making twice the work for myself, I feel like, because you have to knit 2 of everything.
Yeah.
And I imagine that would be difficult. But the person who knits that I was talking to said, if what you want to knit is socks, then you should start by knitting socks. That's because that's what's going to hold your attention. And that's what's really going to sort of drive you to move forward into practice and that sort of thing. So I can see that there might be something in that. So I might, when it chills out a little bit, I might look for the sock tutorials, and
which are coming up.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm excited about it. And then, you know, it's a whole nother fiber addiction. I love fibers.
Mm-hmm.
And that stems back from my costume design days. I love textiles and anything, you know, that has to do with fiber arts. So socks will be good. And they make great gifts, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm the same way. Like I really want to make sweaters, but again, that's another huge project that I'm already stitching so many huge projects in cross stitch. So I'm like, and I think it's just, again, the cool season. Once the cool season comes again, I might be more interested in knitting.
Right.
And not so much in cross stitch, but right now I'm like gung ho off the cross stitch. So I don't know, we'll see. So, okay. So let's switch tracks here a bit, and why and how did you decide to do a YouTube channel, Felicity Stitches?
So I knew I wanted to do a channel after watching FlossTuber videos for like a couple of weeks, and it really wasn't feasible with school because there was just too much going on. And I would try to, the reason I did a FlossTuber channel is so that I could interact better with the people I was watching on FlossTuber and have a better relationship with them. I wanted to reciprocate the relationship in the way that they were, because even though I was trying to interact with them and I was leaving comments and I was getting responses, and I would try to leave comments that required a response so that I was engaging, because I just desperately wanted to interact with people who were interested in the same thing that I was interested in. And I hadn't found my shop yet. And so I hadn't found other stitchers locally. So I really wanted to do that. And so that's really why I decided to do my channel. And I actually started it before school ended. because I just couldn't wait any longer. So I just had to do it. And, you know, it was really right at the start of when FlossTube sort of exploded. And I think that was the other reason that I did it, is I was really worried that I wouldn't, like, nobody would see me if I waited too long, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I want everybody to see me, but the people that I was interacting with, I wanted them to see me. I don't know if that makes any sense or not. And I agonized over names forever. What about this? What about that? What about this? And I'm good friends with Mackenzie. And I remember sending, and she's like, oh, that's nice. Oh, that's good. And I was like, yeah, but. And when I was growing up, my mother and I she was a single mom. I was an only child. So we were best friends. And we did everything together. So I'm out the name of my channel, and I'm thinking about what is stitching to me, and I'm looking up synonyms for different words, and what does this mean? And I feel like some people's channels have such great names, and I want to have something that's somewhat unique. So I was like, well, you know, stitching's my happy place. It's like where I feel happy. So I'm in my online thesaurus, and I'm looking up other words that mean happiness, and Felicity comes up. And it really is sort of like that kind of grand happiness that you get. That's what Felicity is. And so I thought, well, that's perfect, because when I was growing up and I was spending time with my mom, we had a boat, and the boat's name was Felicity. So that's why my channel in a way is kind of named after my mom. So that's why it's called Felicity Stitches. So it's basically ultimate true happiness is in stitching for me.
That is a wonderful story. I never knew that. So I didn't know if maybe you explained that on your channel and I just missed that or forgot after. And that's such a great story for I never knew Felicity meant like true happiness. So
yep. And
awesome.
Sort of like almost serendipitous happiness.
Yeah.
You know what I
mean? Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That's a great story.
It's good. And I have never explained that. I actually keep thinking I'm going to do one of those know your needle worker tags.
Yeah.
And I think probably twice a week, I think, oh, I should film one of those. And then I never get around to it. And that was one of the things I was going to explain, because I know it's confusing to people. Why isn't your name Felicity if your channel is Felicity Stitches? But Jen Stitches isn't really all that exciting, I feel like. So, yeah.
So then, since you started your channel, you've done some really unique videos that kind of set the pace for some other channels to do some similar videos, such as your packing video for the set up for whenever you went to a retreat. So what made you have the brainchild to do that kind of video?
Honestly, I think sometimes I get on YouTube and I'll just search for stuff. Like some people would Google things, I YouTube things. Mm-hmm. And I'll just search even at like stupid things like clean your room. And 7,000 videos will come up. Watch me clean. Watch me scrub my bathtub. And you like, there's something really calming about that. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I was trying to pack for the retreat and I was texting some of my friends that stitch and, oh, what are you going to pack? And what things are you going to bring? And I thought, I YouTubed it and there was nothing. And I thought, I wonder if anybody else would be interested in knowing, because we're all talking about going to retreats, that I'm hearing more about people going to retreats. And wouldn't it be good to have something to reference, at least to know what to pack, how to pack? What if you're flying? What if you're, driving? How do you even approach it? So I thought, well, I'm just sort of going to document what I've thought about and why I'm going to do it. And in the end, it's a big joke for the people who went to the New Jersey FlossTuber retreat, that video is kind of a bunch of hooey, because it ended up being one of those things where I packed, but yet was still completely unprepared.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother-in-law, who I live with, jokes all the time now when I talk about packing for a retreat. She's like, well, I know this really great video you can watch. I'll tell you all about what you should pack for if you're going to a retreat for cross stitching. And I'm like, oh, that's really funny. The basics that you need to know is that you need to be comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And you have it's basically 7 different weather systems in a hotel or a conference center. So you need to be ready for all of them. And it's not a Vogue photo shoot. So wear what you're most comfortable in and be prepared to be really, really hot and really, really cold all within the same hour. And you'll be set, I think. And take small stuff that you can travel from the table with, because big stuff, A, is hard to pack. TSA is going to want to search and look at your, light, and you don't have enough room to bring haul home with you. So that's my new condensed version.
So are we going to have a packing version 2 update in the future here?
I probably should do an updated version where I'm like, so these are my 3 pairs of sweatpants that I'm going to wear, and that's it. Yeah.
And then you also did a review of like your lights and your magnification, which I thought was really interesting, because many people need good lighting and magnification for their stitching, especially when they're stitching on higher counts, which you like to do, 40, 46 count. I don't know if you do a higher, have you stitched on higher than 46?
I started a project on 56 count because I'm ridiculous, basically. Mm-hmm. I bought some really high count fabric at Needleworkers Delight when I was at the New Jersey FlossTuber retreat, and it's beautiful fabric. And I started the project and I was like, oh my gosh, look at how tiny everything is, so tiny and so cute. And then I masked myself right out of being excited about it when I realized that I was basically stitching the same as over 1 on 28 count. 56 over 2 is the same as 28 over 1, right? And when I had that realization, I kind of lost its sparkle and uniqueness, because I can stitch 28 over 1 without magnification or lighting. 56 over 2, I'm like, cross-eyed a little bit with like 7 different lights on me, and I've got my funky Yoko Sun headgear on. Mm-hmm. But I think I'm still going to finish it because it's going to be a really cute little piece if I do finish it. So I'm debating. But yeah, I thought when I was looking at things like floor stands, I would YouTube Lowry stand and things would pop up. And I got some great videos about that. When I was looking for a lap stand, I came across Lori, who is Organic Granny, who I love, and she had a really good informative video about the needlework system for cable/lap stand, and sold me because I was like, okay, that meets all of my needs. And then you recently did an updated Lowry stand video, and it's excellent. And these are the kinds of things. Oh, something just fell and it scared me. These are the kinds of things that stitchers need so that they can make informed decisions about their purchases. And we don't all have unlimited disposable income to try every last thing on the market. And I am a collector by nature, I think. So I'm always looking for the newest and the greatest and what's going to help me. And the other thing is, not one size doesn't fit all for anything within our stitching needs, right? So I just thought, if I did something that included everything that I have, then maybe someone would find one thing in that video that could help them with the way that they stitch, and that would be a useful thing for people. So I decided to do it.
Excellent. So then, since starting your channel, has your stitching evolved or changed?
That's a really good question. Well, yes, because when I started my channel, I was still in school. So I was working on smaller things. And since then, I finished school and I've started some really big projects, which I haven't really stitched on a whole lot because they're really big projects and they're a little overwhelming. So I have to figure out how, because I do really want to stitch them. But yeah, it's changed. I think I found my way more into samplers. I really love samplers, and I wasn't a huge sampler stitcher when I started my channel. I was just sort of, oh, that's really neat. I was watching Nicole's needlework, and she really gave me the bug for samplers. So I do more samplers, and I like to try different kinds of stitching. So I think because of my background as a costume designer, I spent a lot of time learning the technical aspects of how to sew correctly. So I'm all about learning how to do it the right way. And I also recognize that there's a large assortment of the right ways to do this. So right now I'm really into stitching in hand, and I wasn't before. So I guess that's another way that it's changed. So I'm trying to learn how to do the sewing method and to stitch in hand. What I like about it is it's very portable, and it's really easy to pick it up and put it down and pick it back up again, which is good.
Excellent.
I have to pick things up, put them down, and pick them back up again with kids and stuff like that. So.
And speaking of your kids, have either of them learned to stitch yet? Have you taught them? Do they have any interest in stitching?
They do. They both do. My daughter is 6 and she does stitch. She actually stitched with me a little bit at the New Jersey retreat. I found a freebie for. I didn't bring her stitching. I don't know why I wasn't.
The New Jersey retreat or StitchCon?
Or StitchCon. No, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. StitchCon. Okay. We went as a family because we could drive down together, and the hotel had a pool and that sort of thing. So I could do some family stuff and then some retreat stuff. And she was all about wanting to spend time with the girls and stitch at the retreat. So now she has an Aunt McKenna and an Aunt Arlene, and she's really hilarious. But I found a freebie on the table for her, and she came and she sat and she stitched, and she loves it. She loses interest really quick. She's like 6 stitches and then she's done. Sure. But it's great for her because we work on understanding that cross stitch pattern is like a map. And that the key to this, with the symbols is like a legend of a map, and it'll tell you where to go and where to put your threads and that sort of thing. So we're learning that, and there's counting involved. So it's really actually great. And then fine motor skills. It's a wonderful craft for a child, I think, around her age to pick up. My son is interested, but he's only 3, so he's not really ready to stitch. But I am collecting patterns for him that I think that he would be interested in when he gets to be closer to her age. So I'm hoping to raise them both to be stitchers. I don't know if that's a lofty goal or not, but my son's really cute. When I come downstairs and I have a little bag that has my stitching in it, if he sees that I have that bag, he runs over to the spot where I sit and he turns on the light for me. It's really sweet.
Very nice.
And they know not to touch it. And I'm really careful about keeping scissors or anything like that out because I don't want to have an accidental disaster on my hands. But yeah, they're starting to get into it. I am encouraging it for sure.
That's awesome. So then let's wrap it up here. For anybody who might be, and I've been asking everybody this, anybody who might be on the verge of starting a channel or hasn't started because they might be anxious about starting the channel, do you have any advice, tips, any tips of encouragement to push them over the edge?
Yes, of course I do. Let's see. The first thing that I would tell you to do is not to be afraid. One of the biggest things I was afraid of when I first started was there's so many channels out there already. What am I possibly going to offer that's not already being offered? Like, how is it going to be any different from how many pairs of jeans, how many different brands of jeans do you need, right? But you never know when your channel, your personality is going to click with other people. And this is how you connect with people.
Yeah.
So don't worry about that part of it. And don't worry about your first video. It doesn't have to be perfect or anything like that, because you do evolve, you do get better. I've noticed that I feel a lot more comfortable talking into my camera or my phone all by myself, because I really do feel the more comments you get, the more interaction you get, you really do feel like you're actually talking to someone. So that gets less awkward. And a practical tip, I would tell you to, once you have sort of logistics worked out, like where are you going to film on, and what are you going to call your channel, get a dedicated email address for your channel, and then set up your YouTube channel. So I wouldn't connect it to your personal email address. I would connect it to a separate email address that you can use just for your channel. And then, you can have, if you're into being all over social media, you can do an Instagram account that has the same channel. It's easier for people to find you if it's like that. And it's also easier for people to communicate with you if it's like that. So those would be my big tips. And just don't be afraid. Don't worry about being nervous, because those things we're not worried about that. We just want to see your stitching. We want to see what you're doing and hear about what you're into and what gets your creativity going.
Awesome. I agree 100%. So I want to thank Jen for coming on today, and I had such a great time. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You can find Jen again at on YouTube and Instagram. Everything will be linked below. Felicity Stitches, as we know, is euphoric stitching. So Felicity Stitches, linked below. All linked below. I'm sure it was on the screen as well. And give her some love on YouTube and Instagram. She's posting quite a bit, and you do like a monthly-ish video for the most part, I think, right?
Monthly-ish, yeah. I try, yeah.
Yeah. So, and she does great reviews of some books, some flip throughs, which she was able to encourage me to go and buy a couple. So definitely has some great taste in books and design styles. So go check her out and give her some love. So thank you very much, Jen. And don't forget to always be creative. See you guys later.